Ever find yourself, like, knee-deep in a DIY project, staring at a pile of pipes and wires and wondering, how on earth did this stuff even get here?
Right.
I mean, we all use hardware, plumbing, heating supplies, but who actually thinks about the network, the whole system that gets it from the factory to our local store shelves?
It's kind of invisible.
Well, today we are going to try and fix that. We're going behind the scenes to learn about the wholesale merchants, the ones who keep this whole industry, this hardware, plumbing, heating industry going.
They're the unsung heroes, definitely.
And we have some really interesting sources to help us with this deep dive. You sent over a bunch of stuff from RoleCatcher,
Yes.
career guides, interview tips, and even, get this, info about using AI to, like, stand out to recruiters.
Which is huge now. That's a whole other layer.
Wild, right?
Yeah,
So maybe not as old school as you'd think.
not at all. Very high tech, the whole thing.
Okay, so before we get too far, can you give us a quick overview of this world? What exactly do wholesale merchants do?
Well, at their core, they're the connectors. They're the ones who make sure those faucets, those furnaces, those very specific screws you need for your project actually exist in a store where you can buy them.
Okay, so it sounds like a lot more than just being a middleman.
Oh, absolutely. They're not just connecting buyers and suppliers. They're really driving the industry, in a way.
And the role catcher guide kind of makes them sound like these investigator matchmakers, like they're researching, connecting, negotiating these like massive deals.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. They have to understand both sides of the equation. What are buyers looking for? What are the latest trends? What are suppliers offering? What are the production capabilities? That kind of thing. Then they have to bring those two sides together and hammer out a deal that works for everyone.
So they need to have some serious negotiation skills, right?
Oh, absolutely. Negotiation is key. They're dealing with large quantities, often with tight margins, and any delay or miscalculation can have a ripple effect throughout the supply chain.
Yeah, the guide actually mentions a situation where a shortage of some really specific type of copper pipe.
Oh, I remember reading about that.
Yeah, and apparently it was because a wholesale merchant totally misjudged the demand.
Wow.
And it ended up delaying this huge construction project by weeks and costing them a fortune.
Yeah, it just goes to show you their decisions have real world consequences, It's not just numbers on a spreadsheet.
Totally.
It affects projects, pricing for consumers, even the availability of the newest energy efficient options. It's a lot of pressure.
And speaking of new technology, I was blown away by how much tech is like embedded in this world now.
Oh, yeah.
AI, automation, it's not just guys in warehouses anymore.
It's a whole different ball game. I mean, they're using data analysis to forecast demand, optimize their inventory. Even some warehouses are using robots for certain tasks now. It's all about efficiency.
It's amazing. So let's talk about what a day in the life actually looks like. The Role Catcher Guide breaks it down by career stage. Let's start at the beginning. Entry level, wholesale merchant assistant.
Okay.
What are they doing?
So at that level, you're really doing a lot of the groundwork, a lot of research, data entry, making sure all the details of those deals are in order.
That's a lot of learning the ropes.
Definitely like an apprenticeship in a way.
Mm.
This is where you'd be, really getting to grips with industry-specific terms.
Give me an example.
Sure, like landed cost,
Right,
which
yeah.
isn't just the price of the goods.
Right.
It includes all the shipping, the handling, all of that, which is super important when you're negotiating a deal. Or purchase order lead time.
Okay, how long it takes to actually get this stuff.
Exactly. From placing that order to it actually arriving. These are just two examples, but there's a whole language they need to learn.
So it's not just knowing your pipes from your faucets, it's understanding the whole ecosystem. But it's interesting, even at this entry level, the guide stresses analytical skills and market trends.
No.
Why is that so important so early on?
Because even at that level, you need to be able to look at data, spot patterns, and understand what's happening in the market.
Okay.
Like, imagine you're a wholesale merchant assistant, and you're tasked with researching a new type of eco-friendly insulation.
Okay.
You need to analyze its specs, compare its price, how easy is it to get to the traditional options, and then figure out, is there even a demand for this? Will people buy it?
Right, because if no one's buying it,
It's pointless.
it's a lot of responsibility, even at that level.
It is. And the guide mentions they often work long hours, tight deadlines. It's not for the faint of heart.
No kidding.
But the rewards can be big too. As they move up, become a junior wholesale merchant, they take on more responsibility. They're identifying clients, finding suppliers, and they're getting involved in negotiating those trade agreements we talked about.
And that's where those high-stakes negotiations really come into play, right?
Exactly.
What are some of the challenges at that level? What might someone encounter when they're, like, in the thick of it, trying to close a deal?
Well, put yourself in their shoes for a second.
Okay.
You're a junior wholesale merchant. You've landed a meeting with, let's say, a big box hardware store chain.
Okay.
They're interested in this new line of energy efficient water heaters,
Okay, nice.
which you're supplying, but they're balking at the price.
Because these things are always pricey at the start, right?
Right,
So
exactly.
the pressure is on. You got to convince them it's worth it.
Exactly. So you have to really sell them on the long-term cost savings, right? You emphasize that growing demand for sustainable products.
Right. Everyone wants to be green.
Everybody, exactly. And then maybe you sweeten the deal a little bit, some incentives, extended warranties.
We got to get creative.
You have to, because you're not just selling a product, you're selling a vision of the future.
Totally. It's like a whole thing.
And you're navigating all the contracts, the lead times, the potential supply chain issues, which is a whole other can of worms.
I bet. So it's a lot of juggling, a lot of plates spinning.
Always, yeah.
And I imagine those stakes just get higher and higher as they move up that career ladder, right?
Absolutely.
They become like a full wholesale merchant.
Then you're talking key accounts, building those long-term relationships with suppliers and buyers. You might even be involved in, expanding into a new market,
Wow.
new product categories even.
So a lot of responsibility, but I imagine the earning potential is pretty good.
The RoleCatcher guide definitely highlights that as a major perk, yeah.
Right.
But, it's not all sunshine and roses. They're very upfront about the downsides, too. Long hours, fierce competition, tons of travel sometimes.
Yeah, because you're not just sitting at a desk all day.
No, not at all. But it's rewarding, if you're someone who thrives in that fast-paced, results-oriented environment.
It sounds like it. And it sounds like you need a very particular set of skills. Well, we've talked about the negotiation skills, but the guide really emphasizes being analytical, knowing the market, like really knowing it. Are those skills valuable outside of, plumbing supplies?
Oh, 100%. Think about it. Understanding how a market works, knowing how to negotiate, making decisions based on data, that's valuable everywhere.
That's a really good point. It's almost like you get this crash course in business, even if you're not dealing with physical goods.
Exactly.
And speaking of skills for the future, let's loop back to this whole AI thing, because RoleCatcher seems to be all over this, like using AI to help people find jobs.
It's fascinating how fast it's changing.
It's kind of blowing my mind. Like AI-powered tools to analyze job descriptions, tailor your resume.
Yeah.
AI that helps you practice for interviews and gives you feedback.
I know, it's what?
And a system that's matching your skills to potential employers. Is this really happening, or is this a gimmick?
Well, it's definitely a sign of things to come. AI is already changing the way companies recruit, whether people realize it or not. Have you heard of applicant tracking systems?
I've heard of them.
So that's ATS for short. A lot of companies use them now.
Right.
And basically, it scans resumes for keywords. It's like a digital gatekeeper in a way.
So it's like AI is making decisions about your application before a human even sees it.
That's right.
Wow.
And that's where tools like RoleCatcher become so valuable, because they help level the playing field, They give job seekers insight into how these AI systems work so you can put your best foot forward.
So it's like you don't have to be intimidated by the robots. You can learn to work with them.
Exactly. Their AI resume tailoring, that's a perfect example. It analyzes those job descriptions,
Right.
helps you figure out which skills to emphasize.
So you're not just throwing everything at the wall and hoping it sticks.
No, it's very strategic. Like having a digital strategist in your corner.
That's amazing. And then there's the AI interview practice, which honestly sounds kind of terrifying and amazing at the same time.
Oh, right.
It's like, oh, AI is going to judge me now.
Oh, I know. It's a little Big Brother-ish, but it can be so helpful.
Okay, because...
Imagine you get real-time feedback on your body language, how you're speaking, even how clearly you're articulating your answers.
That's good feedback to get.
It is. It's invaluable, especially for people who get nervous in interviews.
Totally. But it does make you think, if AI is becoming this integral to finding a job, and we're talking about all these jobs where AI is becoming really important, what does that even mean for the future of work?
Right. Big questions.
Big questions, yeah.
I think what we're seeing is this shift towards humans and AI working together
Okay.
more and more. Wholesale merchants are using AI to make better decisions. Job seekers are using AI to navigate that whole process more effectively.
So it's like this weird kind of, I don't know, arms race, but hopefully everyone wins.
Let's hope so. But it definitely highlights how important it is to be adaptable, to
Yeah.
always be learning.
Right, because what's a hot skill today?
Gone tomorrow.
Exactly.
So you have to be ready to evolve.
So as we kind of wrap up our deep dive here into the world of wholesale merchants, this whole AI future of work, what's the key thing you want our listeners to take away from all of this?
Don't be afraid of it.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to learn about these new technologies, invest in those skills that will be valuable in the future, and just pay attention to how the job market is changing because it's changing fast. The world of work is definitely evolving, but that creates opportunity.
Right, for the people who are prepared.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for, walking us through all of this, giving us this peek behind the curtain of this world. It's really fascinating stuff.
Thanks for having me.
And for everyone listening, keep those curious minds open and keep those sources coming. We love this stuff. We'll see you next time. It's kind of creepy, actually.
It can feel like that, yeah.
But that's where, like, these tools that RoleCatcher's creating, that's where it gets interesting, right?
Totally.
Because they're trying to give you the advantage.
Level the playing field for sure.
So you're not just, like, out there, like,
Exactly. Knowledge is power, right?
Yeah, so you can outsmart the robots, or at least understand them.
Work with them.
So like the AI resume tailoring, that's a good example, right?
Yeah. So it's not just about like, oh, I have these skills, let me list them all.
Right.
It's really understanding, okay, what is this particular company looking for? What are the keywords, the phrases that are going to catch their eye or, well, their algorithm's eye?
So you're not just spamming out the same resume to like a million different places.
No, it's tailored.
Like a custom-made suit
Exactly.
for your resume.
It's like having that digital strategist.
And the interview practice with AI still freaks me out a little.
I know, it's a little Black Mirror, I get it.
But it's valuable
Right.
because you get feedback you would never get otherwise.
Exactly. I mean, think about it. When you practice for an interview, usually it's with a friend.
Right.
They're not going to tell you, like, you're fidgeting too much or whatever it is.
Right.
But this doesn't hold back. It's analyzing your tone of voice,
Oh, wow.
body language, how clearly you're getting your points across.
I like having like a coach in your pocket, but it's a robot.
Basically. So it makes you think, if AI is becoming so important for finding a job, and we're talking about all these jobs where AI is changing how you actually do the job.
Right.
What does that mean, like, for the future? Like, the future of work in general?
Yeah, that's the billion-dollar question, isn't it?
It's a little scary, honestly.
It can be, but it's also exciting. I think what we're seeing is this shift towards humans and AI working more and more in tandem.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily that the robots are taking over.
Right.
It's that we need to learn how to work alongside them.
So it's a partnership.
Exactly.
And that means those uniquely human skills, like creativity, critical thinking, problem solving, those become even more important.
Because the robots can't do that yet.
Not quite.
Not yet. All right, so as we wrap up, because we could talk about this all day, it's fascinating.
Totally.
What's the one big takeaway, the thing you really want to leave listeners with about all of this whole world, this AI revolution?
Don't bury your head in the sand.
Yeah.
Stay curious, stay informed about these new technologies, how they're being used, and don't be afraid to experiment, try new things, and most importantly, invest in yourself, your skills, your knowledge, because that's what's going to set you apart.
That's awesome advice.
Thank you.
I love it. Well, hey, thank you so much for taking us on this deep dive. This was really, really interesting.
Thanks for having me.
It's amazing to get a glimpse behind the curtain of how all this works. And for anyone listening, if you've got interesting sources, you know where to find us. We love to nerd out on this stuff, and we'll keep digging into these topics. So until next time, stay curious, everybody.